Established in the year 2000, the Washington State Potato Foundation strives to promote pride throughout the potato industry. Funds generated for the Washington State Potato Foundation are directed towards supporting excellence in agriculture scholarships and providing a host of educational workshops for growers throughout the year. The Washington State Potato Foundation has chosen each year to honor special individuals who have made a positive impact on the potato industry. That award is called the Industry Leadership Award. Based on a history of making significant contributions to the agriculture community, demonstrating leadership capabilities, plus a steadfast commitment to the agricultural profession, this year's recipient is one of those individuals who could truly be called a forefather of the potato industry. The 2007 Industry Leadership Award winner is Pete Tagaris Sr. If character could be defined as an attribute of notable, unique, and conspicuous traits, then Pete Tagaris would definitely qualify as a character. Pete's agriculture legacy began in 1956 when he moved to Othello, where he anticipated that the rise of irrigated land out of barren sagebrush would lead to bigger things. He was right. 3 decades of potato farming generated incredible success. This success was accomplished by an innovative entrepreneurial spirit who saw adversity as a challenge.
Pete was a risk taker. He wasn't afraid to put it on the line, and he backed up what he said. And I think it was his ability to see into the future. He built the first French fry plant in Othello.
His major business accomplishment was in forging the potato processing industry in Washington State. Built in 1964, chef-ready French fry plants became one of the country's largest fry producers. In 1974, Tagaris teamed up with J.R. Simplot to develop Simtag Farms, a 30,000-acre irrigated potato farm, notably the Northwest's largest irrigated farm.
The more money he made, the harder he pushed. He was just one of the people that was never satisfied with what he had. He kept reaching. His goal was always more.
It's kind of interesting because Pete just had an aura about him that was bigger than life.
And in keeping with his propensity to make it big, his Snake River Concord grape vineyard became the world's largest such vineyard. Accordingly, the respected business news and financial publication Forbes magazine acknowledged him as one of the nation's largest landowners.
I was never in a room with Pete that he didn't dominate the room in a good sort of way. He was a leader. He could see into the future better than anybody I ever seen in my life.
Widely recognized for his business and agricultural leadership, Pete was also voted by the AP as one of Washington's top 10 most influential people.
Great success, well-liked man, well-known man, probably one of the best well-known men in the potato industry in the world.
Despite these notable business accomplishments, Tagaris had a big heart for all people and was a tremendous philanthropist.
He was very, very generous as far as the community and helping other people in business. One thing about Pete, when you made a deal with him, you stuck to the deal.
His soft side was something that wasn't immediately exposed, but it was definitely there.
One day I walked into his office and he said, "How many grandkids you got?" And I said, "I got 5. And so he reached in his pocket and he pulled out $500 bills and he said, "Give one to each one of your grandkids." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Don't worry, I'm going to ask one of them to make sure they got it."
We had a house fire in 1980. And while the house wasn't completely burned down, it had to be destroyed and rebuilt. That happened on Saturday. We were making plans to perhaps rent a trailer or something for some interim housing. Pete called about 9 o'clock Monday morning and he said, "Understand you had a fire." "Yeah, we did." "Well, where are you going to live?" "Well, we're going to get a trailer and bring it out here." "No, you aren't. You're going to come and live in the guest house." I said, "Well, Pete, it's going to be like 6 months." "I don't care if it's 6 years. You're going to come and live in the guest house." But that's just the way it was. And of course, if Pete made up his mind, it was going to happen. So we graciously accepted his invitation, and that really certainly helped us out.
He would drive up, and if you had a guy leaning on a broomstick, you and the guy would both get chewed out. But if that same guy fell and broke his leg, he'd have him on his jet flying him to Spokane or Seattle to fix him. That's the kind of guy he was. He watched these pennies, but his heart was so big to help people that there was no strings attached when it come to helping. When people worked for him their whole lives, there was always a continuing salary for them when they got out.
If you're in trouble, there's only two groups of people that Pete would help. The ones he liked and the ones he didn't like. As long as the person was in trouble, and if Pete could help, he was always there to do it. I really don't believe that anybody knows the number of people that Pete has helped.
Pete was a major contributor to the senior citizens community, was part of the hospital's meal delivery program, the American Heart Association, and UW. Other regional causes included building a pool for St. Luke's Rehabilitation Center in Spokane and establishing fish hatcheries to support salmon enhancement.
Well, about 10 years ago, the school had a piece of property that they had purchased, and they wanted to get it cleaned up and leveled and get a field made out of that. My general manager was a chairman of the school board at the time, so he told me this little story. He said, boy, I went into Pete's office and I was standing outside of the door, and he said, "What? Come in here." Well, he went in. "What do you want?" "Well, I'm here as part of the school board. I'm chairman of the school board. Which are the best school board members?" "Well, then we've got a good board. All the board." "Now, which one's the best one?" "Well, you know, I'm really not here to talk about the board members." "Well, what are you here for?" "Well, we've got this piece of property and we'd like to get it leveled, and just want to know if you'd help." "I'll do it, but I don't need any help." And that was it. That was like on a Saturday, and on Monday morning they had a crew in there laying pipe and watering it down, getting it all prepared to level, and within 2 weeks it was done perfect. But if Pete was going to take on a project, he didn't want a lot of second guessing, because he knew how it was to be done, and he was going to do it exactly right.
Pete always just did things. I know of a lot of things he'd done, and when the snow would be on the ground, he'd plow the streets in the city. He'd send people into the city, spray the weeds in the city. He was always there to help.
Larger than life, Pete Tagaris truly was a man of great measure, both for the potato industry and for the community. His accomplishments and his character embody the Industry Leadership Award.
Well, Pete had a great management style. It probably wasn't or would not be considered consultative. Pete didn't really believe in big meetings, but he would call meetings. But that's the key. Pete would call the meeting. Some people would come. He would have a little conversation. They might even say something, but you knew the meeting was over when Pete said, "Well, here's the deal." That was that's the way he consulted.
Deals. Oh, one thing I'd say about the man that I think was striking is a lot of his deals were made on the hood of his car or on the trunk of his car. He would write on there and you would agree, and that was your deal. Always with me, we never had a written piece of paper between us. We always had verbal communication. He would just kind of write it out or talk it out. I would agree, we had a deal. And I know this, for $1 million deals, he done the same way. It didn't have to be any fancy lawyers involved or anything else. He give you the deal, you took the deal, you both lived up to it.
To me, it has just been such a pleasure to have learned to know him.
He would be honored with this recognition, but he would have never asked for it. But he will be honored with it if he could look down at, if he's looking down at us. I hope he's having a great time, and I hope God can control him, because he's probably trying to run the thing.
The Washington State Potato Foundation is pleased to honor Pete Zagaris as this year's Industry Leadership Award recipient.